Along the Oregon coast, in the late 1870s, they built a lighthouse. Its location was chosen for the sheer cliffs that jutted out into the Pacific Ocean, a beacon for ships, guiding them away from the treacherous rocks and into the safety of the nearby bay. But from the moment construction began, misfortune followed. The first tragedy came as they built the lighthouse's walls. A storm swept in with sudden fury, gale-force winds ripping at the scaffolding, causing the wooden beams to moan and buckle. The workers scrambled for safety, scattering like leaves in the wind. The storm passed, but someone was missing. A young man, barely known by the crew, had vanished. They searched, but there was no sign of him. Some said he fell into the sea, swallowed by the churning waters. Others stayed silent. The work had to go on. Days later, as they peered into the narrow gap between the walls, they saw something, a light-colored hat. No one spoke of it, but they knew. The missing man had been sealed within the concrete. They had entombed him, and there was nothing to be done. They say it's just a ghost story, told around driftwood fires on cold, lonely nights. But every time I hear it, every time I tell it, I can feel the weight of that sealed soul, trapped between the walls. The last piece of the tale came decades later. A lighthouse keeper, alone on a stormy night, climbed those same stairs to change a light bulb. In the pitch-black darkness, he died. A heart attack, they said. But his wife, she said his face was frozen in horror, as if he'd seen something waiting for him in the shadows. And now, I pass it on to you, hoping the story won't stay with you like it has with me. But as you look out at the lighthouse, remember some things can never be forgotten. They're cemented into the walls.
Not everyone believes in spirits or the supernatural. But for one person, the year spent caring for their grandmother was filled with unexplained occurrences that left them with no doubt about the presence of otherworldly forces. The first experience happened during a quiet afternoon. Our storyteller sat in the living room, watching TV, while their grandmother napped peacefully in her bedroom. In the kitchen, on the far end of the counter, was a butter dish with a knife resting on top. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a sharp clatter. They walked into the kitchen, expecting to find a mess. But instead, they saw the butter knife lying in the middle of the kitchen floor. Days passed, and life went on quietly until another incident unfolded. They were in the living room again, watching TV. As a diabetic, they carried a constant glucose monitor, which they had left on the arm of the couch. But upon returning from a quick trip to the restroom, the monitor was no longer where they had left it. There was no reason for it to have moved. No one else around who could have touched it. The room, once a comforting space, began to feel foreign, as though someone or something was watching. To understand the final event, you need to picture the layout of their grandmother's home, a mostly open space. The front room sits by the entrance, with stairs leading down into a dark, unfinished basement. Straight ahead lies the kitchen, dining room, and living room, all connected without walls to separate them. Large windows line the dining and living room, with a sliding glass door at the back, bathing the house in daylight. But as night fell, the atmosphere changed. One evening, as they sat in the dimming room, the sun had already set, but the blinds were still open. There was no breeze, no vents, nothing that could have caused the movement. It was as if an unseen presence was reaching out, reminding them to close the blinds. Other unexplained occurrences followed, some too personal, too strange to share. But each incident left its mark, a reminder that perhaps the boundaries between our world and the spirit world are thinner than we believe.